Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm the Executive Director here at the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. We're so glad that you have joined us. As you know, the purpose of our show is we talk about the lives and experiences of women. We talk about gender-based violence, human trafficking. We also talk about women in leadership, gender equity, women in trades and decision making, right? And we always try to create opportunities where we can build resilience, education for all of us in the community, and how can we challenge our thinking, right? And so that has been kind of the focus on the shows that we've been doing recently, that we've been talking about trauma and what it means to have a trauma-informed lens to interacting with other people. And so we're going to continue that conversation today. But before we do want to recognize and thank our Indigenous community. We are just always grateful for the opportunity to have these conversations on these traditional lands, that we look for opportunities to be allies and partners with a recognition and understanding about the Indigenous experience as we know it and as we learn about it. And that learning comes from you. So thank you so much. And we just appreciate the space to share with you. So I'm going to throw it over to Deb James, who's our Community Development Manager here at the shelter. And Deb and I are going to continue our great conversation about trauma-informed.
Yes. So thank you very much. It's been a great series so far, and we certainly hope that you've learned some things and continue to learn some things when we talk about trauma-informed practice and when you're engaging and interacting with people and best practices. And this is content, this is programming that we offer to the community. We go out and we talk to a lot of different people with this training. So why don't we start just with a very quick recap, some of the things that we've kind of touched on. I know we want to get into the workplace and how trauma-informed lens really can, be applicable in that scenario. But let's just have a quick little recap off the top.
And I appreciate just you informing folks about the trauma training that we do in the community. We provide trauma training to business folks, other community agency, nonprofit agencies, really any interested group, we will provide trauma training to. And we've done a very, very condensed version of the trainings that we offer with regards to trauma. And so, if you are out there and you're thinking, this might be really good for my employee team for us to have a trauma training, or your agency or your counselors or, people who interact with the community, right, as a whole, please reach out to us. And I will share my contact information at the end of the show. And if you are interested in a trauma training, certainly reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you more about that. And also we offer a variety of trainings. So not only just trauma, we offer a lot of training about intimate partner violence, impacts on children. We do a lot of training about human trafficking, the cycle of violence, power and control, a lot. And so, it's just one of the many hats that we wear at our shelter. Of course, our key work is supporting women and children who are experiencing violence. Of course, our Rogers TV show is another hat that we wear, and providing training of all kinds in the community. So please think about that and reach out if you have an interest there. We have been talking about trauma, that we all carry trauma. It's all relative to our own experience and our own interpretation of what that looks like. And we can all react differently and will to traumatic situations. And so we talked about that, the different types of trauma, relational trauma, intergenerational, historical, systemic trauma, vicarious trauma. I encourage you to please watch all of the first episodes of this series on trauma so that you can really hear more about the breakdown of all the different types of trauma and what trauma actually means. We also talked about how to de-escalate. When you are interacting with someone, recognizing that we all carry trauma, how do we try to de-escalate and bring heightened situations down so that they're manageable, so that we can have conversations with people and carry on with what it is that we need to do. And those are the skills that help all of us. We all interact with people in the community. If you're a business owner, you have people walking into your store all the time. They carry trauma. They might become upset because they want a refund on something they bought. It might become heightened. How do you talk to them to just try and keep the conversation calm so that you can come to a place of resolution? And so that was some of our conversation we had about de-escalation. And we're going to move our conversation now into trauma-informed workplaces. So why do we even talk about this? Well, because we're human beings and we all come to work. Most of us, right, are able to do that. So we are interacting with people who carry trauma, including ourselves, our co-workers, our supervisors, our clients, our colleagues. We all carry life experiences. And as we've learned, those life experiences impact who we are. They impact our response when we're faced with other stressful situations. And you might see this in a coworker who comes to work one day and they're not able to focus. They seem to get heightened really, really quickly. You can tell that something hasn't been right with them and for them for quite a long while. How do we have empathy for our colleagues in the workplace with an understanding that we all carry trauma? And so it is really important to think about the workplace and how do we also have a trauma-informed lens to that, right? So if you think about a trauma-informed workplace in terms of your customers, right? Your customers at the bottom line, they want to be understood and they want to receive the help that they need, right? So I have a parking ticket. I want to challenge the parking ticket. I go into the city of Barrie, let's say, to have a conversation about that parking ticket. I want to be heard. I want to be understood. And I want to get the help that I feel that I need, right? That's the bottom line experience for the customer. What's the bottom line for the employee? Employees also want to be heard, want to be understood. They want to receive the help and support that they need to do a good job so that they are also able to offer help to the customer. So if you want your customers to be happy and healthy, you also need to give some time and consideration to your employees being happy and healthy and recognizing what can be going on in their lives as well. So in terms of leaders, managers, supervisors, executive directors, right? We want to be understood. We want to receive help and support to do the best job that we can so that we can offer help to our employees, who in turn will offer help to the customer. And it is so important at each of those levels that we are trying to be the best role models that we possibly can. I try, as an executive director, to be mindful of trauma that any employee can experience and carry. I'm also mindful of my own trauma and experiences that I carry. And when I'm talking to an employee and they are really struggling with the work, because it is very hard to be working in our environment, right? How can I have a conversation with someone from first a place of trauma informed, that I recognize their own life experiences? Maybe there's skills to be able to cope, or maybe not so many, right? As leaders, we have to be very mindful about that, right? And how can we support our employees so that they're well, so that they can be well to do their jobs, right? So it is very important for us to have these conversations because people are coming into work and, you know, we've all experienced it working with somebody that we know is just not at their best. And that impacts us because sometimes we have to pick up the slack, let's say, right? But even then too, can we come from a place of understanding and you know, compassion towards other people, right? And find a way to work. There's some key elements to a trauma-informed workplace, right? And so we're going to kind of float all over the place. Needs to be safe. And if you have a health and safety committee, which probably most of us do, you recognize that it is vital that physical spaces promote wellness and safety for all people, right? So you don't have dark hallways where employees need to walk down, that it's well lit, right? Imagine someone who has experienced a traumatic event that occurred in the dark. And we have dark spaces in our workplaces. And for some reason, and we haven't figured out, why is it so hard for that person to walk through that dark hallway, right? I'm using a very rudimentary example here. But why is it so hard for that person to walk down that dark hallway, right? Well, maybe they've had an experience, right, that we need to be mindful of, right? And it is not safe and not trauma-informed to have physical workspaces that can be inducing of harm to people, right? So I just always want to mention the physical space is very important. Brightly lit, welcoming spaces that create wellness for employees is very important, right? We're going to talk, excuse me, about how employers go about the hiring and training and onboarding of new employees, right? Leadership that is thoughtful about sending a clear message of working in a trauma-informed environment is very important. How do leaders convey to employees that we recognize you? We see you as individuals who've had life experiences, and we want to work with you through those things as they creep up into the workplace. The best employers are businesses, agencies that recognize their people, that see them as people with life experiences, people who've experienced trauma, and approach that with compassion and empathy, right? Yes, pay is good, benefits is good, all of those things are great. But having respect and dignity for your employees is vitally important. And so maybe we're going to put a pin in it there and we're going to take a short break and we're going to come back and carry on this conversation. There is so much to cover, but please stay with us and we'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
You're watching an interesting local show on Rogers TV and you want to know more. That's when you head to RogersTV.com. Our website provides more information about our programs, our hosts, our schedule, and about how you too can get involved with Rogers TV. Visit us online at RogersTV.com.
Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. I'm Deb James, Community Development Manager with the Barrie Women and Children's Shelter. Normally, Teresa is asking all the questions with some wonderful people in our community, but today I'm asking the questions of the wonderful Teresa. And we are talking trauma-informed training that we provide in the community. This is really putting everything through a different filter. And when we talk about looking at life, interacting with people with that trauma-informed lens. And we left it just a few minutes ago talking about our workplaces and how important it is to really filter things through that trauma-informed lens when you're in the workplace, and how it's so important in a leadership capacity, in that leadership role, to really bring that empathy and bring that lens to work as well. So let's keep going with that.
Okay. And again, I want to emphasize to our viewers, you are just getting such a small snapshot of the training that we provide. And so we're trying to cover as much information that we possibly can today. But, just again, if you have an interest in the full gamut of the training, please reach out to us. We'll share my contact information at the end. And we would love to hear from you if you are interested. We've been talking about how you create trauma-informed workplaces, and trauma-informed workplaces is one that recognizes the life and experiences of all of your employees. And so folks are coming to work every day and they're carrying some stuff. They're carrying baggage. They're carrying stuff on their shoulders, in their minds. There's stressors happening in their lives, and that can impact productivity. No question about that. It can also impact how they relate and interact with their colleagues, with clients, with their supervisors, right? So having a trauma-informed approach to the workplace is very important. How can you support employees recognizing who they are and those life experiences and try to work with that? I do want to distinguish between a trauma-informed approach and disciplinary approaches to employees, because we all know employee rights, and if you have a unionized environment and human rights, it is far healthier if we are able to negotiate and find a way to support employees through the things that they're going through to increase productivity and to get to a better place. And maybe that's your EAP program at work. It's, recommending that somebody get some counseling to help them with what's going on, and having honest conversations with them that we recognize and respect that there's something happening for you and it seems to be impacting your ability to do your job. How can we help you with that? So there is that approach, which is very trauma informed. But there is also distinguishing between when it takes that leap and needs to become something disciplinary. And that is when you, of course, need to engage your HR personnel and have conversations with them about what that needs to look like, right? Absolutely, there is a role for progressive discipline and when that needs to step in, and when you as an employer or a leader need to take that step, that is for you to decide. If you are still able to do those things with a trauma-informed approach, wonderful, that you still recognize that the person is going through a difficult time. Hopefully, you're able to have a conversation with somebody about productivity and just really seeing, I think that there's something going on for you. How can we help, right? How can we support you with that? You can have great success with employees, building relationship, right? When you come from an approach of wanting to be a supporter, right? That really recognizes what they're going through. So that is sort of more so what we're talking about, but I never want to disregard the role that progressive discipline plays, and that there is a role for that and a need for that from time to time. But overall, we can create trauma-informed workplaces that recognizes the life experiences of all of us, right? It is very good as an agency, a business, to train your employees about trauma-informed practices, right? It's kind of new terminology that people don't really know, that we don't use every day, right? In one of my previous careers, long time ago, I used to be the empathy trainer for an agency. And all new employees who were hired on had to, it was mandated for them to participate in empathy training. And in that training, we talked about how do you have conversations with people when things might be getting heightened? How do you have respectful, dignified conversations that are empathetic and compassionate towards people's life experiences? So I really do encourage businesses and other agencies to think about some form of empathy training or trauma-informed training for all your employees, because in that, you set the tone of the environment. You let everyone know that we recognize you, as I've said before, we recognize you and we see you as people who carry life experiences. And when you make that a mandatory training, it also tells everybody that we will build tolerance of each other and resiliency and support each other, that we will not judge each other or lay blame and shame on each other, that we will be a workplace that supports each other and is empathetic towards each other. So I cannot say enough about training, and that is certainly where we can come in and help you in terms of training your team, right? If you think about your clientele coming into a workplace and you want them to know what kind of a workplace they are coming into, signage can be a very easy tool to help you. So if you work in a setting where the community is coming in and out and they're using your space, that place that they're coming into, what kind of signage can you put on the door that says we are a trauma-informed space and you are welcome? And those words can be very crucial. How do you welcome all of the community to say this is a safe space for you to come in, but these are our guidelines for the use of our space? So putting something on the front door before somebody even comes in that says, we welcome you to our space, but please know, we will not engage in harmful, disrespectful conversations with you. We may ask you to leave the environment if it is unsafe for you to stay, right? You cannot use profanity, yelling, screaming, right? And I'm using these as examples. But when you create signage right at the front door before people walk through that door, it informs them about the environment that they are walking in. And that is helpful because when something goes awry and people aren't following those rules, you can say, oh, let's call it a code of conduct. We have a code of conduct here that's posted right on the door. And so I'm going to have to call the police, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave, right? If you're not able to conduct yourself okay in this environment, it's okay, but we're going to have to ask you to leave. That is helpful for your customers to know those guidelines, but it's equally helpful for your employees. It tells your employees that we respect you and we want to create a safe environment for you. So we're going to make sure that our customers know what this environment looks like for your safety. Very much for the customer safety, but for the employees as well. And it is just really important, I know we've got about 5 minutes left, that every agency has solid policies, procedures, and builds a culture of support for its agencies, right? So is there a leadership statement about the value for all employees, that leadership values the opinions and suggestions from employees to create a healthy and supportive work environment for everyone, including the clientele, right? Is there specific training? Is that laid out in the policies? Do people know where to go when they need help? Can you enlist champions in the workplace who are a supportive team to others, right? So in our environment, we have a crisis response team. So when something happens tragically in our shelter, let's say the death of someone in our shelter, we have a crisis response team that is a group of trained employees that support whatever that situation is. And so we have somebody who's going to make tea for the women, other women in the shelter and the staff, someone who might drive staff home, someone who's going to do a series of debriefs with the employees or the people that are involved in the situation, right? We built that in because we really wanted to wrap around our women and children, wrap around our employees when there's a critical incident that's happening. And everybody has a very specific role that they play, right? And so, again, that is embedded in our policies about having a crisis response team when those things happen. And certainly, if anyone is listening and is interested more about how we've done that and what that looks like, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you more. And the last thing I want to say is about leadership that builds trust and just how important that is, right? It is important to try and know about our employees, our coworkers, to check in and look for changes in behavior that can be happening for people. And usually we'll see that maybe in work performance. But you also may see that that person's colleague will come to you and say, you know what, there's something going on for that person. I can't work with them anymore. They're not doing their job and it's just really hard. I think that they're crying a lot of the time, right? So you might hear complaints from other people. How leadership responds to that is critically important, right? So some questions for the leaders in the room. Do you recognize when an employee or a coworker seems off? And do you approach it with them? Are you having conversations with them and acknowledging that you're seeing something happening for them, right? Would you feel comfortable to do that? It's important to ask ourselves these questions. Is there training and support for your employees and coworkers to speak with each other first when a conflict arises? Certainly it is our policy here in the shelter, if there is a conflict and it's safe to do so between two folks, we encourage you to have a conversation with that person directly before needing leadership to step in. We find that resolve happens much better when people can have their own conversations to that, right? Is privacy and the sensitive experiences of all employees upheld with trust, privacy, and confidentiality? Do our employees know that they can come to us and talk to us about something very, very sensitive and trust that we are going to listen to them with an open mind, an open heart, in full privacy and confidentiality of the situation? So I will leave our leaders in the room with that last point, and certainly would be more than happy to talk more about our training and provide that to groups if anyone listening is interested. And to that vein, you can reach out to me at Teresa, Teresa, at berryshelter.com if you have an interest or would like to know more about this series of trainings that we've talked about. But we do thank you for being with us and engaging in this conversation. It's helpful. We've provided a snippet, but we hope we can carry on the conversation. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Deb, for having this conversation with me. And we will see you all again next time here on Educate, Inform, and Challenge. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.